Right now, somewhere in the world, a person just woke up and the first thing they did, before getting out of bed, before saying good morning, before even opening the curtains, was reach for their phone. Maybe that person is you. This video explores a simple but deeply unsettling question. What would happen if every smartphone and mobile phone on Earth suddenly disappeared overnight? Not broken, not turned off, just gone. To answer that question honestly, we first have to understand something. Phones didn't just become popular, they became essential. Slowly, quietly, without anyone really planning it, the small glass rectangle in your pocket became one of the most powerful tools in human history. In less than 20 years, the smartphone changed how we talk to each other, how we work, how we navigate, how we pay for things, how we remember, and how we feel. It changed the shape of daily life so completely that most people no longer notice it. The same way fish don't notice water. By the end of this video, you will understand something that most people never stop to think about. Just how much of the modern world now lives inside that one small device. Imagine it's early morning. Your alarm should have gone off at 7, but there's silence. You reach for your phone. Your hand finds the nightstand, then the lamp, then nothing. You sit up. You look around. The device that has been within arm's reach almost every moment of your adult life is simply not there. For a few seconds, you assume you've misplaced it. You check under the pillow. You check the floor. You call out to someone else in the house. And then, slowly, a strange feeling begins to grow. Not quite panic, but something close to it. Outside, in cities around the world, the same moment is happening to billions of people at once. A mother in Lagos tries to message her daughter at university. A contractor in Seoul needs to send a document before his morning meeting. A teenager in São Paulo reaches for music that no longer plays. A taxi driver in Cairo opens an app that no longer exists. And for a moment, the entire world pauses. One technology researcher once said, "The smartphone became the remote control for modern life." Most people smiled when they heard that. Now, standing in the silence of that first hour, they would understand exactly what it meant. The confusion is not just personal, it is everywhere at once. Because phones didn't just connect individuals to each other, they connected individuals to systems, to banks, to hospitals, to employers, to governments, to transportation networks, to every piece of infrastructure that modern civilization runs on. And in the first hour, all of those connections are broken. By mid-morning, it becomes clear that this is not a glitch. It is not a power outage. It is not something that will be fixed by lunchtime. And that is when the real problems begin. Most people no longer know phone numbers by heart. Studies have shown that the average person can recall fewer than 5 telephone numbers from memory, and that number has been falling for years. Without phones, reaching someone across the city feels as difficult as reaching someone across the ocean once did. People show up at offices to have conversations they would normally have in seconds. Families leave notes on refrigerators. Neighbors knock on doors. A psychologist who studied digital habits explained it plainly. People often underestimate how deeply technology shapes daily habits. When the technology disappears, it's not just the tool that's gone. It's the entire rhythm of the day. Without navigation apps, millions of drivers are lost. Not because they are unintelligent, but because they genuinely do not know the streets. For a generation that grew up with GPS, the ability to read a physical map is increasingly rare. Bus routes that were only accessible through apps become mysteries. Rideshare services stop entirely. Airports become chaotic. Trains run, but nobody has mobile tickets. And the queues at service desks stretch outside. Remote workers have no way to join meetings. Delivery drivers cannot receive orders. Restaurants that move to digital ordering systems stand quiet. Factories that rely on mobile coordination struggle to communicate shift changes. Journalists cannot file stories. Photographers cannot send images. And somewhere, a surgeon is trying to reach a specialist in another country, and the line is dead. And then there are the emergencies. A woman alone on a dark road after a car accident cannot call for help. A parent watching a child have a seizure cannot reach emergency services instantly. A fire starts in an apartment building, and the people inside discover, for the first time, that they do not know where the nearest payphone is, because there are almost none left. A researcher studying digital infrastructure put it this way: "We didn't just replace old communication systems with smartphones. We dismantled the old systems entirely. The phone didn't supplement the infrastructure. It became the infrastructure. By the end of the first week, society has not collapsed. Humans are adaptable." That is perhaps the most important thing to understand about this scenario. But adaptation is slow, and it is painful, and it is unequal. Companies that had moved entirely to digital payments discover that their systems depended on mobile authentication and cloud services accessed through mobile networks. Cash returns, suddenly and urgently. Banks open longer hours. ATM queues are long. Some small businesses close temporarily. Others pivot quickly, printing menus, posting prices on handwritten signs, returning to the kind of commerce that existed 30 years ago. And then something unexpected happens at dinner tables around the world. They become louder. Children who might have sat in silence, scrolling, instead talk. Parents who might have been answering emails at the table instead listen. Couples who had been in the same room but separate worlds are suddenly, genuinely together. A sociologist who studied family communication noted, "Digital devices gave us connection to the wider world, but sometimes at the cost of the smaller world right in front of us. But the reconnection is not entirely warm. Arguments surface. People who had been holding feelings inside, sending careful, considered messages instead of having difficult conversations, now have to speak face to face. The phone, it turns out, had also been managing emotional distance. New solutions appear. Newspapers see a sudden and massive return. Radio stations that were quietly declining find themselves with enormous new audiences. Community notice boards, physical ones, on walls and in windows, fill up with messages. Local libraries become meeting places again. And in some neighborhoods, something very old returns. The sense that you should know your neighbors by name. Beyond the first week, if phones stayed gone, something deeper would begin to shift. Social media, as it currently exists, would simply stop. Platforms built entirely around mobile access, Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp, Snapchat, would vanish from daily life as completely as the phones themselves. The endless scroll, the morning check, the late-night browsing, gone. Entertainment would change shape. Streaming music, podcasts, mobile games, video platforms, all would require adjustment. But the on-demand, anywhere, anytime quality of modern entertainment, the ability to watch anything, hear anything, read anything, at any moment, would be gone. And attention itself would change. A researcher who studied the effect of smartphones on concentration described it like this: "Mobile phones didn't just give us access to content. They restructured the human attention span. Removing them wouldn't immediately restore focus. It would first reveal how fragmented our attention had become. People would feel restless, bored in ways they had forgotten were possible, waiting for a friend, for a bus, for food at a restaurant. Without the reflex of reaching for a screen would feel at first almost physically uncomfortable. But discomfort is not the same as damage. Here is something worth sitting with. There is evidence, real, documented evidence, that many people feel better when they use their phones less. More present, more rested, less anxious. Researchers studying screen time and mental health have found consistent links between heavy phone use and reduced attention, disrupted sleep, and lower reported happiness, particularly among younger people. If phones disappeared, some of what followed would be genuinely good. Eye contact would return, not as a social skill people try to practice, but naturally because it would once again be the default way humans engage with each other. Conversation, real conversation, would slow down and deepen. And something that is very hard to measure but very easy to feel, presence, would increase. Walking down a street, people would see the street. Sitting in a park, people would see the park. Eating a meal together, people would taste the meal. A psychologist studying distraction described this plainly. The phone gave us the world in our hands, but it also gave us the habit of being somewhere else, even when we were right here. There would also be privacy, returned without asking for it. No location tracking. No targeted advertising following you from app to app. No record of everywhere you went and everything you searched for. Your life, once again, would exist primarily in your memory and the memories of those around you. This is not a small thing. We tend to think of major changes as events. Something happens. The world is different. We notice. But the smartphone changed the world without feeling like a change. It crept in. One feature at a time. One habit at a time. The camera first, then the maps, then the music, then the banking, then the social life, then the work, then the memories, then the identity. Somewhere along the way, without anyone announcing it, the phone stopped being a device for calling people and became something far harder to define. It became a container for a significant portion of modern human experience. If it disappeared tomorrow, we would not just be inconvenienced. We would be disoriented in a way that is difficult to describe before you have felt it. Like arriving somewhere very familiar and finding that every street has been rearranged. We would grieve it. The way people grieve not just what they lose, but what they realize they had without knowing it. And perhaps in the quiet that followed, some people would discover something they had been too busy to notice. That the world is still here, that other people are still here. That conversation, and stillness, and boredom, and the particular pleasure of doing one thing at a time. These are not old-fashioned things. They are human things. The phone did not replace those things. It only covered them over, very gently, one notification at a time. If it disappeared tomorrow, they would still be there, waiting,